Hi folks, so today we will talk about my favorite topic, so self-sovereign identity. And I work in a domain around 3 years. What I really learned for this time that you have two rights and two habits that you need to develop. So the right to be misunderstood and the right to make the mistakes. I guess it's skill on every industry, but today we will try to talk about the topic that people do not understand maybe right in a self-sovereign identity. I still need to do the video of what the self-sovereign identity is about. I have this video for my Ukrainian audience, but I haven't translated to the English. And today we will talk about the network effect. The network effect, the user databases, and what the really game changer in a self-sovereign identity in comparison to the other solutions. So what I mean on the network effect, so that's super easy to explain on the, for example, social login. So on the social login, you go to Facebook, you have your identity in the Facebook. Facebook manage the keys. Facebook give you some kind of authority identity that controlled by Facebook, and Facebook act as a mediator between you and some reliant parties, some different websites, and as a result, in a network, we have the websites and Facebook that talk to each other. They form the network and they actually manage your data and rule everything. So it's just a network on the small selective players that somehow distribute your data that you don't own, and your identity do not belong to you. And actually Facebook have some kind of keys or some cryptography that actually prove that you who you are. Yeah, and when we talk about the self-sovereign identity, it's the two really main thing that people not focus, that you get the right to state who you are on behalf of yourself. You own the keys. You could be the identity provider for yourself, and it's blow up the network effect, because right now, instead of communication of some selected groups of the websites, all the user database of these websites could directly communicate to each other, could exchange the data to each other. So instead of forming the network of the products or network of the applications, we have the network of the sovereign players that could exchange the data, could share the data about each other, could form their own identity, and it's remove from the equation a lot of redundancy that the websites and the identity providers currently have. For example, one of the redundancy in this case is the user database. You don't need to build yet another identity server. You don't need to build yet another user database, because your users right now, the independent players that actually store the data about themselves on their site. So yeah, for sure, any kind of identity is some kind of user database, but it should not be so. Take a look to the different view that, for example, I read quite interesting idea that the identity systems, it's not about the user databases. Identity systems is more about the tracking of the relationship between your application and somebody else. And quite often you don't need to know anything about this person except some data attributes that really matter for your business. And I recommend you to read quite useful paper. It's the Laws of Identity. It's quite interesting. It's from 2005, but it's described the ideal identity meta system that could be used to build another identity systems that matter. So practically every business is in an identity business. I know that maybe it's not so clear to others, but practically every business track some kind of relations between your business and users. Even the ticketing system is the identity system, because in practice the ticket is the identity that gives the right for some particular owner of this ticket to occupy the place in some other space for some limited period of time. And in this term we have classical identity that focus on these attributes. So soul-sovereign identity, changing the space, changing the way how the businesses should treat the user data, how the businesses work with the user data, and the most important, that user data belongs to the user, not to the business. And I guess that it will be the huge resistance, but what we do not understand, that and quite often focus on completely different things. We're not focusing on decentralization or some other aspects. It's very important but not crucial. What the most crucial idea, that it's blow up the network effect, that right now the users, independent players, and the amount of connection in the network just increase exponentially, because the users now have a possibility to interact with each other. Have a possibility to interact directly with the businesses, and they don't need another representative. And I guess that future of the identity systems, it's an identity meta system that described in the laws of identity. And if you subscribe to my YouTube channel, you could go to the community and see quite useful map how identity laws, that I will talk about them in my next video, maps to the self-sovereign identity principles, and they support each other and they form the base that actually give the most important thing, full control of user on his identity and consent, that user knows to whom he shared the data, and the data that only matters to this particular relationship. So maybe you don't need to know my date of birth, because it's already too much. You maybe not even need to know my age, because maybe it doesn't matter if I am 21 or 35 or 40. I already eligible to buy a drink, so maybe you could ask me if I'm eligible to consume the alcohol in your country. So that's it. And I guess that consent, user management, tracking of relations and data attributes instead of users, it's all the future that we do not see. We just see one tree instead of seeing the forest. So I'm quite keen to build the protocols on top of this idea. And if you work in an identity space, just share some notes with me, what you are doing, how you building, what to think about the laws of identity and all those things, and think about the potential network effect that you could unlock when you apply the self-sovereign identity to your technical systems. So that's it that I was keen to share with you. Please subscribe to our channels, share your comments, share our videos, and see you next time.